Welcome back. The president-elect winning again as the Electoral College yesterday made it official. But leading up to the vote, the mainstream legacy media still held out hope. Those results could change. He might not win.
Donald Trump's opponents need just 37 electors to go rogue today, and a handful have said they plan to.
It seems that people are still holding out hope that the Electoral College, when they vote tomorrow, will somehow miraculously decide that Hillary Clinton is the winner.
When the Founding Fathers created the Electoral College, they put it in place as a fail-safe against a demagogue like Donald Trump.
There's a hope, there's a glimmer of hope on the Constitution.
So why that storyline? Here to analyze is senior editor at The Federalist, Molly Hemingway. Good morning to you, Molly.
Good morning.
So why mainstream media pushing this narrative? Why don't they just accept the results?
You know, in a year where the media have done such a bad job of understanding the entire political landscape, it's really funny how they're continuing to do such a bad job. This was a story that we all knew was never really real, but newspapers and media outlets gave it a lot of prominence. They treated it like it was legitimate. The Washington Post had a front page above the fold, you know, their #1 story on Sunday morning, which was all about this effort to somehow have Donald Trump not win the Electoral College. And that story itself admitted that there was no evidence that it would happen. So the question is, why are you covering it so much?
That's the point. That's why we're talking about this. But Molly, when you look at that little soundbite montage right there, you got Martha Raddatz, who Donald Trump at his last event said that she was crying on election night because Hillary lost. Martha Raddatz was saying people are holding out hope. Who are those people? Is it her? Is it the mainstream media, the legacy media, or is it people on the left? What's she talking about?
I mean, we're seeing something very much widespread on the left, and of course many people in the media are part of that progressive left that are just having trouble coming to terms with the reality that Donald Trump was elected president. They've struggled with the results from election night. Then a lot of people put hopes in recounts that only showed that Donald Trump got more votes. Then there was some glimmer of hope they had for the Electoral College. And again, you know, it's worth pointing out that Hillary Clinton lost more electors than Donald Trump did.
7.
It is not true that a handful of electors abandoned Donald Trump. There were 2, and we don't even know who one of them was because he or she gave no advance notice. So they're covering the story, but they're not looking into what I think is most interesting. Who's behind this effort? How close are the people tied to the to the Hillary Clinton campaign? Who's funding the protests? Who's finding the names of electors? You know, that takes
What's the answer to that?
Well, it takes money and time, and there are a variety of different progressive groups, but we haven't seen good reporting on who's orchestrating it, much less, I would point out, that a lot of this campaign has been about targeting and harassing electors in their homes, and I think that if this were happening with Republicans targeting Democratic electors, the tenor of the coverage would be wildly different. It would be like, why are these people harassing these poor, you know, electors? That was not the tenor of coverage that we saw.
You were right. There would be an investigation.
Do you think the mainstream media will ever come around based on what we've seen so far with Donald Trump, like the carrier deal bringing more jobs? Do you think that they'll come around and maybe see his side at some point?
No, I don't think that's likely. But it would be really important, you know, it is good to have, there's a glimmer of hope there. It's good if the media can be trusted by a wide variety of people, and we don't have that right now. It's in the media's best interest to think about how we're covering Donald Trump, whether this reflexive hostility that we have for literally every single thing he says or does, you know, people are just tuning it out, and that's not good for democracy. It's not good for our civic health. So I would hope that the media would think a little bit more about how we're covering, able to ask tough questions and get good answers, but not this reflexive anger.
And not good for their ratings. It doesn't reflect the voters.
Well, they clearly are out of touch with a huge swath of the American public, and it's something that, you know, rather than quadrupling down on our ignorance or our inability to see what's going on in the country, it would be good for us to think about how out of touch we are and whether we can do a better job.
Cover it fairly.
Let's
All right,
see.
good deal.
Thank you, Molly.
Thanks.
Fox News alert, terror attacks rocking 3 cities around the world just days before Christmas. And just moments ago, breaking news from Berlin, we learned where the terrorist truck driver came from. And the news, it's not good.
It's not. And the new complaint from the New York Times, the Trump administration is too white. But maybe they should take a look at their own staff. We sure did. What we found, we're going to share with you next.
It is Tuesday. It's December 20th. We start with a Fox News alert. A wave of terror attacks sweeping the world. We have a live look now in Berlin. where a Christmas market is now a crime scene after a Pakistani refugee plowed a truck through a crowd of shoppers.
Look right there in the middle. It was a Christmas tree on its side. That city, just one of 3 targeted by terrorists yesterday. The others, Ankara, Turkey, and Zurich, Switzerland. In Berlin, a dozen people are dead and over 50 are injured after a semi-trailer with the lights off, filled with steel beams, smashed into a busy Christmas market jammed with shoppers. In Ankara, Turkey, Russia's ambassador to that country assassinated by a rogue police officer standing behind him with a loaded gun. It all unfurled on live television.
That's right, as he yelled Allahu Akbar. And in Switzerland, 3 people are hurt and the gunman dead after an attack on a Zurich mosque. So, an incredibly violent and dangerous day yesterday.
No kidding. And just within the last 10 minutes, the authorities over in Germany have talked a little bit about the driver of that truck who went through that Christmas market last night. His name is, we believe, Navid B., 23 years old. He was originally from Pakistan. Then on New Year's Eve 2015, he entered the Balkans. 2 months later, he entered the country of Germany and he applied for asylum. He entered under a false name. He had a number of different IDs, and according to the authorities, he has a criminal record. Not a sterling citizen, from what we can tell right now.
12 people were killed. Almost 50, at least 50 people were injured. They were shopping there in a market. We see these markets all over the country.
Yeah.
Definitely, I would pass them all the time here in New York. People were just there shopping, buying Christmas presents. These are Christians probably, buying Christmas presents, targeted by what looks like it could be terrorism. They're not confirming that yet, but it does have all the hallmarks of terrorism.
Absolutely. And in this particular case, you talk about it's Christmas. It's Germany, famous for their Christmas markets. Definitely Christians and holiday goers being targeted specifically for who they are, where they are, because it's a soft target. And this guy, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to determine what his motivations were, having looked at other attacks that use these types of things. This is a tactic of ISIS, who has claimed responsibility for this. It's not difficult to get your hands on a vehicle. You don't need any particular training, and all you have to do is find a soft target and strike it. And when you've opened up your borders the way that Germany has and Angela Merkel, and you don't know who everyone is, you said false passports, Steve, you're vulnerable to these types of things at this moment.
Just like what happened in Nice, this guy was driving 40 miles an hour. It was a semi-truck. He stole it, apparently, according to reports, from a guy owned a construction company in Poland. The truck was being driven by the owner of the construction company, by his cousin. His cousin was found dead in the passenger seat.
Shot.
The guy, either shot or stabbed, I'm hearing.
He was shot.
Then the guy who was driving this truck, he took off and was found a mile and a half away. Someone who witnessed it all chased him down, told police, tracked him into a park. He was trying to run into a park where it was dark, where he could hide, and they found him and they arrested him.
Okay, so the suspect, who is now in police custody and apparently is talking, he had been, ever since he got into the country in February and had applied for asylum, he apparently had been living at inside a refugee hangar out at the airport, which was raided at 4 o'clock local time there in Berlin.
It's because Angela Merkel and the policy she's pursued, which have become incredibly unpopular there, have brought in, I don't know if we have the full screen on this or not, but over 1.1 million refugees admitted in 2015 alone. 420,000 from Syria, there's the numbers there. Afghanistan, 154,000. Iraq, Albania, Kosovo. Pakistan not even listed in that number because it actually, the number matters a lot, but all it takes is 1 or 2 to get through with the wrong motivations.
There were warnings about this from the State Department, too.
Yes.
Warning Americans, if you're going overseas, if you're going to Europe, you need to be aware of holiday markets just like this. And that's why many of you went to the polls and you voted for Donald Trump, who has been adamant about eradicating ISIS and securing our borders.
I noticed something on that statement, too. It's always a holiday market. Again, no, it's a Christmas market. It's Christmas time.
Right.
From the State Department, I didn't even think about that.
It's always a holiday market. Listen, political correctness has infected so much, and the globalist view that Angela Merkel espouses, that the leftists take advantage of it and they flow right underneath.
We have not yet heard from our president. He is on vacation in the great state of Hawaii. After he was briefed on it, he went golfing. However, Donald Trump, who actually owns golf courses, did tweet out about the attack. He wrote this: "Today there were terror attacks in Turkey, Switzerland, and Germany, and it is only getting worse. The civilized world must change. He also talked about eradicating terror from the face of the planet. We had Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. He returned to every time there's something like this, and unfortunately it's way too often. He said how to stop future attacks? We'll do this.
You shift the axis of discussion in this country on security from violent extremism to violent Islamism. It's the global jihad stupid should be our mantra. These are jihadis before they become militant jihadis. They're non-militant jihadis who believe America's evil, who are against democracy, who believe in the Sharia state, who are misogynistic. They're anti-Christian and anti-Semitic online. And I guarantee you, we are not following those ideas online, so therefore these guys come out of nowhere once we've tried to find them to be violent, which is often impossible to predict.
Well, Steve, speaking of coming out of nowhere, the other story from yesterday is out of Turkey, and you're holding the headline right there.
Here it is right here.
A security guard, a supposed Turkish police officer off duty, used his badge to get into an event with the Russian ambassador, and live on television pulls out his handgun and shoots the ambassador in the back, yelling, unsurprisingly, Allahu Akbar in the process.
He also yelled, "We die in Aleppo, you die here." That man, and there he is. This is so creepy.
Yeah,
there's the ambassador. He's just speaking, and the guy, he didn't realize the guy was going to kill him, standing right behind him, pumped a couple of bullets into his back. That officer, 22 years old, was shot in a standoff with police. What's interesting now, though, is you keep in mind, this was the Russian ambassador to the country of Turkey. Vladimir Putin is already calling this a provocation aimed at sabotaging the ties between Turkey and Russia, which have been tenuous in the past. Things have been warming up over the last couple of months, but I believe it was within the last year when a Russian fighter intruded into Turkish airspace, and the Turkish, you know, they've got their hard red lines. They shot it out of the sky.
They did, yeah. And in this particular case, Erdogan, the leader of Turkey, has moved increasingly in an Islamist direction, but they've tried to find shared opportunities with Russia to engage and deal with ISIS. It's a very complicated situation, and what happened there, it's difficult. It's difficult initially to discern all the motives, but certainly an Islamist motive in that killing.
And this doesn't help.
We have a Fox News alert to tell you about. We're just getting video of the guy who drove that truck into the Christmas market in Berlin, of him being apprehended. You can see him there on the other side of that gate being apprehended, and it looks like put into a police vehicle.
Yeah. You know, the other
He's
part...
denying that he took part. He's saying he wasn't even there.
Oh, he is. So you added that point, Ainsley. Apparently someone, a citizen, followed this guy a mile and a half away from the incident after he jumped out of the truck, because ultimately suicide bombers and killers like this are cowards. So he's running to hide to try to save his own skin after murdering innocent civilians at a holiday party.
Pure evil.
You know what I feel like when you talk and look at all of this? You hear the words, and Dr. Zuhdi Jasser said it before, see something, say something. I feel like that's what Donald Trump is in a macro sense. He's seeing something and saying the civilized world is committing suicide.
And he's saying we're going to eradicate.
And he's saying it's radical Islam. We have to have extreme vetting. We need borders. And you know, the left reacts with its politically correct reaction, but he's doing what we have to do if we want to be vigilant as a society.
It's not a time to talk about sadness. It is a time to talk about results, how we're going to eradicate ISIS, because these individuals are killing families. It's Christmas time. Imagine if this happened to your family, if your loved one was killed by one of these terrorists.
People have. Orlando. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, it's happened here.
Well, the lead story today was supposed to be Donald Trump until this wave of terror. And the big news, if you've been watching the legacy media, was how there's a possibility that some of these members of the Electoral College, they're going to realize that Donald Trump is unfit to be president, and they're going to become faithless electors. Well, in the end, 7 did actually become faithless electors and defy the will of their various states. However, the headline is Donald Trump lost 2 of the electors and Hillary Clinton lost 5.
Oh my gosh.
And I was watching one of the main, I was listening to CBS radio this morning, and they said, and Donald Trump lost 2 electors, and didn't even mention that Hillary lost 5.
Oh, they didn't?
No.
Who did she lose the 5 to?
She lost the 5. Colin Powell got some of her votes. Also an activist, a Native American Indian activist by the name of Faith Spotted Eagle. In Hawaii, one of her electors voted for Bernie Sanders. Meanwhile, the 2 Trump electors, one voted for Kasich and one for Ron Paul down in the state of Texas.
We mentioned earlier that this was going to be this was their plan B, the mainstream media's plan B.
I think we're up to C now.
But you're C. So what was number 1?
Okay, so the Democrats right now are 0-3. They lost Election Day.
Okay.
They lost the recount, and they lost the Electoral College. And now, according to Howie Carr, who's going to be with Ainsley very shortly, here in about 10 minutes, up in Massachusetts, the U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren is trying to come up with a bill targeting Donald Trump's real estate holdings so that he would be in violation of it, so he could be impeached. Boy. So the fourth act of the lefties to get rid of Donald Trump will be impeachment.
No, those drums will start. No, Plan D. Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, they've every step has been a step to delegitimize, and why would we think that should stop?
But the unique thing about, and it's the way our laws were written, it is impossible to have a conflict of interest if you are the president or the vice president. You can do anything, and it will never be a conflict of interest.
So he was officially elected yesterday.
That's right.
Well, officially, I think the results go to the House of Representatives, and 2 weeks before the inauguration, it becomes certified.
And officially, Faith Spotted Eagle got the same amount of votes as Bernie Sanders. I just want to note that.
That's right.
Okay, let's hand it over to Heather, who has some headline source.
Faith Spotted Eagle, Eagle was the write-in candidate.
That's right.
Okay, sure enough. Good morning to all of you. Hope you're off to a great day. A Fox News alert, and overnight, China returning that U.S. drone that was seized from the South China Sea as tensions continue to run high between Washington and Beijing. The Pentagon slamming the communist nation for what defense officials are calling the unlawful seizure of an unmanned vessel. The Navy saying that drone was performing routine operations in international waters. We now have it back. The search intensifying at this hour for the man who killed a toddler, this beautiful little boy, in a road rage shooting. Police in Little Rock, Arkansas, now increasing that reward to $40,000. That 3-year-old was caught in the crossfire while riding in the car with his grandmother and 1-year-old sibling. They were headed to the store. Police say the shooter was enraged because he thought the boy's grandmother was driving too slowly. They say he honked at her before he got out of his car and then fired a single deadly shot. Heartbreaking. Well, President-elect Donald Trump might be bringing his own private security detail to the White House. Political reporting today that Mr. Trump hopes to use a mixture of retired former police officers and former FBI agents who kept him safe while he was on the campaign trail. May not be such a bad idea after all. Mr. Trump's most famous stalker, Frank Monte, telling a Manhattan judge that he plans to go to the inauguration. Monte's been in jail since 2014 after trespassing multiple times at Trump Tower and even putting his address, that address, on his driver's license. And those are your headlines. Okay.
Wow. All right.
I'll see you soon.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, more on our top story. ISIS now claiming they're responsible for the attack on that Christmas market in Berlin. What does this mean for potential terror attacks going forward with the inauguration and New Year's Eve looming? National security analyst Ryan Morrow has been thinking about that. He joins us live in moments.
And what are President Obama's plans? That might be part of it for his final weeks in office. Golf now, but when he gets back to work, a plan that infuriates some people. Still ahead.
Ooh.
A Fox News alert. Apparently, terrorists targeting a busy Christmas market in Berlin, ramming a stolen truck into a crowd, killing at least 12 people, injuring upwards of 50. So what does this terrorist attack mean for potential terror at home with Christmas, the New Year, and the inauguration coming up shortly? Here to weigh in is Ryan Morrow, national security analyst for the Clarion Project. Ryan, thanks for being here. You take a look at this stuff. No one better to talk to. So how should we have seen this coming? Did they see this coming?
Well, I don't think that they saw it coming, otherwise they would have tried to have stopped it.
Generally speaking.
But yes, I mean, when you look at the trends of what's going on, a lot of this is going to be inevitable with the current policies that are in place. And if you're looking at the holiday threat, you have to look at more than just successful attacks. You have to look at the number of people being arrested, the number of foiled plots. And I've never seen it so high. There was a 12-year-old boy who was radicalized in Germany and tried to set off a nail bomb targeting a Christmas event. So this type of thing is going on constantly. You just don't hear about it.
Why this Christmas season are we seeing such an increase?
Well, one of the reasons is because there's a catch-22 to ISIS's caliphate being reduced. And that should be part of our coverage, the fact that ISIS is losing, so we don't give them
So they're losing ground
coverage
in Iraq and Syria, and that's a good thing.
And that's a good thing. But the catch-22 is that the first preference of ISIS supporters is to go to that caliphate. If they cannot go there anymore, what's option number 2? It's carrying out an attack where they are, including Europe, including the United States.
That's their propaganda as well. Get here. If you can't, attack where you are. Right. You see 1.1 million refugees from various Middle Eastern countries have come to Germany alone in 2015. What's the current, in that country, obviously we know there was a successful attack last night, but what's the current temperature and environment there amongst refugees and the local population?
Simmering chaos. And if they crack down now on that flow of migrants coming in, then you're going to have even more chaos. Now, that's something that they need to do, something that they have to do. But over the short term, you'll still have millions of people coming into Europe demanding to enter, and in some cases trying to force their way in.
Yeah, Trump tweeted, and we played this tweet earlier, but I want to throw it up one more time and focus on the last sentence. He tweeted in response to the attack, today there were terror attacks. At the end, he said, the civilized world must change thinking. And that sentence strikes me. You look at Europe and Western Europe, are they capable of changing thinking to address the reality of radical Islam?
Yes, because you're seeing the thinking change, at least in what they're saying, not necessarily what they're doing. In terms of they're focusing on the ideology, the ideology, the ideology. The other thing that I love about Trump's tweet is that he included in that tweet as a terror attack the shooting of a mosque in Switzerland. Sure. Now that goes right against ISIS's narrative. They say their strategy behind the attacks in Europe is to cause an anti-Muslim backlash. They think that helps them recruit. And so by Trump coming out and including that attack that would have been overshadowed by these other events, he's saying and combating the ISIS narrative by saying the attack on those Muslims matters just as much to me as it is towards non-Muslims.
That's a great point. Briefly, if folks watching the show right now, they want to go to a Christmas market or something here in the United States, what should they be aware of?
Just be suspicious. Keep this on your mind so that anything weird sticks out to you, but celebrate Christmas. Don't be depressed, and keep in mind, if this is on your mind, that we are beating back ISIS, and you can celebrate that while being cautious and being vigilant.
You were exactly right. In Donald Trump's America, Merry Christmas, and Christmas is back. It was never gone. Christmas. It was never gone. It's just back rhetorically. Ryan Merrill, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
You got it. All right. Next, the left completely losing it yet again, this time targeting electors for voting for Donald Trump.
You don't deserve to be in America! This is my America! This is my America! My America! Take me out if you must! This is my America!
In case you didn't know it, this is her America, not yours. Think this treatment is over? You better think again. Radio talk show host Harry Carr is next with Plan C. Could Plan C, their next plan, be impeachment? We'll find out. And continuing coverage of the wave of terror around the globe. The Obama administration hasn't responded, but President-elect Donald Trump has. Senior advisor and former CIA director James Woolsey, who better to ask? He's here live ahead.
We have a Fox News alert this morning. Police in Berlin say the actual perpetrator still has a weapon and is still at large and can do further damage. We're talking about the guy who drove that semi-truck through a crowded Christmas bazaar, Christmas Right. What do we call it? Shopping area.
Christmas market. The story has gotten a little complicated. This is a police official in Berlin briefing the press. We told you earlier that the way they were able to track the original person who we believed was a suspect, the perpetrator, is a guy bolted out of the truck, and then a Good Samaritan chased him for about a mile, and then when the cops arrived said, that's the guy. Well, now the police do not think that the arrested Pakistani was the perpetrator, and so they're putting out essentially a warning. The actual perpetrator still has a weapon, still at large, still can do damage.
And as always, these situations are fluid. The first reports are rarely completely correct. Who they arrested, it was believed was the perpetrator, but things change. It appears also Christmas markets across Germany remain closed at this time, so a fluid scene with you have to be cautious and assume there could potentially be a follow-on attack or anything else. This enemy is capable of just about anything.
So that's the press conference on the left, but look on the right. You can see, can we put that picture up again, the live shot of where this all happened? You can see the barricades in the middle of the road. Those were not there. There were about half of them there earlier when we started the show. Now they've put them all the way across across the street. But we're going to have to see those, I would assume, at Christmas markets all over the world now, so that cars can't get through.
Yeah, but I don't know if that can slow down a semi-trailer filled with steel beams. We're listening. Our producers are listening and monitoring the police briefing, and if there are further details, we will bring them to you. Nonetheless, police do not believe that they've got the ultimate bad guy responsible for killing a dozen people last night.
A fluid situation. We're going to bring you everything we can when we have it. Meanwhile, we're going to move on to a political topic. It is official. Donald Trump surging past the 270 electoral votes needed to secure the presidency, but not without more drama from the left.
Uh-oh. You don't deserve to be in America. This is my America. This is my America. My America. Take me out if you must. This is my America.
Wow.
Well, Democrats lost the White House and Electoral College, but our next guest says that they won't end there. Liberals now calling for impeachment.
Okay, here to weigh in is radio talk show host Howie Carr. He's joining us from Boston. Howie, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Steve. You know, even before the Electoral College pipe dream went down in flames, last week a bunch of Democrat senators led by Elizabeth Warren filed legislation, and under this legislation, the incoming president and vice president would have to divest themselves of all holdings that they had that might represent any conflict of interest. And the key here, as far as the fundraising apparatus is concerned, is that if you violated it, so if Trump forgot to list a deeded parking space on Fifth Avenue, he could be charged with a high crime or misdemeanor, i.e. an impeachable offense.
So it's not over yet. They're still looking for blood, even though the Electoral College thing didn't work out for him yesterday.
Right, the recount didn't work out, the Electoral College didn't work out, so now they've got this. And again, there's no way this bill could ever become law with a Republican Congress. And also, even if it did become law, I mean, look, Bill Clinton, they couldn't get rid of him, even though he committed felonies. But I think this is just another way to raise money. You know, I mean, this has been such a profitable enterprise since the election campaign. Jill Stein, $7.5 million. I'm sure the Hamilton electors raised a ton of dough. And now you have this one. I mean, these people are putting Bernie Madoff and Nigerian princes to shame when it comes to their ability to separate fools from their money.
Howie, you're up there in Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren country. She has seemed to want to traffic in as much resistance as possible. Do you get the sense that she and others like her are literally just posturing and setting themselves up to be the barrier against Donald Trump, no matter what, up to and including impeachment attempts?
Oh, absolutely. That's what's going on here. Listen, yesterday at the State House here in Boston, they had 100, 200 people out here complaining about the results. I mean, there was no question that Hillary Clinton was going to get all the votes here. And you've been playing that video all day of those people in Madison, Wisconsin. I mean, these people are totally deranged. You know, I think their motto here is if at first you don't succeed, cry again. They just won't give up. And again, I think that the key to remember here is that there's an old saying: if you believe in nothing, you'll fall for anything. And these people can obviously they'll go for anything. They hate Donald Trump so much that even if they thought it through for a minute, they'd realize these are all impossible dreams. But they don't care. They'll tilt at the windmill and just send another check to whoever sends them the email of the day.
Howie, is there anything that Donald Trump can do going forward that he could bring some of the mainstream media or some of the left that didn't vote for him into his court?
I think he's just, Ainsley, I just think he's got to get the economy back on track. And look, his favorability numbers have gone way up since the election. I think that's the only thing he could do. These people, you talk about irredeemables. I don't think there's any way to convince these people that were out there yesterday at the state capitals to ever come around. You've got to get you've just got to get the people in the middle to see that we can have a better government than we've had the last 8 years. That's the only thing he can do. I
was at an event yesterday, and there was a guy that pulled up in a convertible down in Florida, and he yells out, "I'm a deplorable."
I have a sweatshirt, Ainsley, that says "Proud to be deplorable. Merry Christmas." You know, it's. I think that's what's selling on the other side of the political spectrum is deplorable paraphernalia. Right. You know, deplorable, irredeemable, and of course bitter clingers as well. Merry Christmas to all bitter clingers.
That's right.
Merry Christmas, sir.
All right,
Howie
Carr, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
More breaking news out of Germany, where just seconds ago, police saying, quote, "We have the wrong man," and the terrorists who drove a truck into a